All right, anyways, semi-professional streamer thing starting up as the chat goes off here. Team 1 in the ANS side, we've got Cherami, we got Hymars, Zabbix, and Pid scoring off against them. Team 2 in the orange trunks, we got Blackbat A8T, we got Flynn, we got Scrubbus, and we got Duke of Stars. Apparently, they're doing something silly in this game. We don't know what. It took them a while to cook up their fleets in the editor beforehand, but this could, in fact, be a funny, entertaining game. So, chat, heaven forbids we actually have a good time around here. Am I right? All right, let's see. What do we get when they finally deploy in? As my camera thing freaks out again. There we are. Meow, 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 meow. All right. So, we are on Valley right now. B point is ANS natural. C point is OSP natural. This map is vertically aligned. Notice 1, 2, 3 points, top to bottom here. Think of this kind of like Nyx's Eye in that you've got a natural and then 3 of these neutrals. If you rotate it 90 degrees, it's kind of similar to that. Maybe a bit reminiscent of like the shape and layout of something like Tombstones or Pillars. It's the same color palette as Tombstone, so it's going to be quite dark here, but we will see what they end up bringing. I'm seeing a couple of different ships deployed around here. That's, I believe, Flynn with the CIA tag, just a little heart there. Okay, fun. Heart and a :3. I've seen this build before, but I forget what it is. I know it's something, so we're going to see what we end up getting here. Please let me know if the audio levels are good or not, chat, as I keep having to try and always look over at that other screen and make sure that I'm not peeking my microphone. All right. They've been practicing for the tournament. Ooh, okay. Maybe that's the case, yeah. I know a bunch of people have been practicing for tournaments, so we'll see about that one. By the way, this is a terrible fleet. Quote from Bat. Okay, well, let's see what we end up getting. If they pull 40k damage and this goes up on YouTube, well, you know what you have unleashed then, Bat. Let's see what they get. All of the Team 1 is running the DTSC tag there. I don't honestly know what that's from or what it stands for, but they're getting the matching colors. I don't know if they have matching paints. I think that they're different for that, so we'll try and guess which ship belongs to who when we see them finally deployed here, but it's just anyone's game, so we'll see about that. Yeah. All right, I need to take a sippy of my water, and you all should as well. Dad, I see you getting off there being weird. Stop that, you. Researching the 2 maps, Valley and Bulwark. Yeah, Bulwark is, when was the last time I saw Bulwark played? Okay, it's been a hot minute since I've seen Bulwark play, because Bulwark Naval Yards is a very interesting map, but I have not seen the most gameplay on it. I've seen very cool things done with it, but yeah, it's just it's a lot of open space, although you can kind of like group around the central, like, what do you even call it? Like the starbase that's there, the big mining platform? Yeah, so you can get some interesting stuff going on there. It feels very open, but it can get very close quarters and tight as well, depending on like which angles you take. You go around a corner and suddenly you're like in smooching distance with a beam battleship, so you can get scared of that. Yeah. Center cap, very close quarters. Yeah, so like a large like open avenues on the outside, but then a very like kind of interesting like hug the rock peekaboo game there, so you can see it. Flynn said he'd BRB. Oh boy. A bit of the old, I don't know, what do you call this? Just like grumblings of the various teams as they do stuff. These people are all friends, or allegedly anyways, so they're having a good time bantering and bickering with each other there. Good to see that. There's Naval Yard center cap is funky. Yeah. Anyways, let's talk about Valley here as we've just been looking at the screen for a second. So, good old Nebulous. Again, remember, good courtesy. If you ready up, you get into the game, please have it be that it's like, we've dedicated this amount of time to my teammates and to the game. We're going to give it the full respect it deserves. If you get called away because there's like, you know, life happens, shit occurs, you can then go and like just, you know, alt forward to the game and pass your fleet off to the next guy. Anyways, good sportsmanship from Team 1 there, as they've actually unreadied themselves in order to prevent the players here from locking in. So does mean they delay for a minute. We'll see if they actually end up deploying or not. There we go. Flynn has returned. Not sure what Flynn had happened, but we'll see if we go. Got a wacky thing on the screen they're saying from PID, so I'm not sure what they're talking about with that, but hey, we'll see. All right, anyways, Nekoboy's Nebulous nonsense is commencing. Let's just gotta calibrate the camera again real quick to seem weird. There we go, that hopefully works. I'm not sure why it keeps making me recalibrate so often. I must not have gotten it set up quite right, or maybe it's the lighting. Anyways. There we go. So yeah, they got the, here, if I press this, control backspace sometimes pulls up the graph thing here, so just watch out for that. Anyways, let's see what we get on the deploy. Ooh, that is 2 bulkers at least in a line. I think that might be 3, given that this thing is eating a lot of drive flare. So we'll have to go through these fleets fast, because these players will be getting this game going very quickly. So we'll see what we end up getting in terms of violence. Yeah. All right, let's take a little look-see around here. So we'll start off with, I guess, Scrubbus, because they're right in front of us. We have got T-30 liner. Interesting choice. T-30 liner with a backpack of, I believe, support containers and stuff. Maybe a decoy or two in there? Yeah, okay, so we got T-30s on you. We've got just broadside plasma, or sorry, C-30s on you, broadside plasma, and then C-30s. Okay, so these are running pretty cheap, man. A couple of teams in them. Interesting stuff. Got some jammers, dazzlers stuff, Citadel mag. Ooh, really cheaping out on the drive there to get this triple Volker fleet going. Interesting stuff. Huh. All right, we'll see how that ends up working out. I understand the tech with like plasma and 100 mil, kind of interesting. All right, let's see. Flynn over here escorting these. By the looks of it, got 450 classic Ocello on these things. A lot of Auroras as well looking around it. Love the zebra stripe paint scheme on this thing as well. Good old Dazzle camo. Nothing really standing out in this one. Same could be said about this one. This appears to have deployed a little bit offset. Yeah, so they're doing battle group over there, and then this thing's kind of moving towards a point. Very cool. This one's got, yeah, pretty standard affair on the internals. About what you expect. Maybe a little bit vulnerable up there with the gun plot, but all right. Anyways, Duke of Stars is going to be running their cap fleet, so to speak. They've got themselves a 450 Bulker, looking like a couple T-20s on here, as well as a healthy backpack of line ship decoys. Nice to see those mind games. Duke of Stars saying GG because obviously they have capped their point first. That means that they will win the game. Totally, yeah, that's how Nebulous works. Woohoo! All right, Duke of Stars running in with 9 shuttles. These are, let's see, T-20 towards the top, the bottom. Oh, I see how they've done these things. So yeah, you do this so it's like number 2 and 3 are grouped together. Then 4 is up there, 5 is down here, 6 is up here. We get the 7th gun shuttle here capping the C point. 8th one is going to be going down low, YOLO'd onto the E point, and then they get a capper YOLO. Nice. All right, lastly, Black Bat over here is running themselves a carrier, dedicated 3K more line with a whole bunch of bombers. Let's see, that is 24 bombers if my math is right. With a good complement of fighters, that is, let's see, that's 18 across there, plus 2, that is 22 in that bank, and then I think that's another 22, so that's like, what, 22 times 2, it's 44 Barracudas. Okay, cool stuff. Lastly, they've got themselves early warning tug here, just good device to do some scouting with. All right. Squaring off against them in the blue trunks, we're starting with Hid over here. Good old 450 full battleship. Got that broadside and the internal, the internal check here. Track correlators here, 1, 2, 3, and where's your 4th track correlator? You usually bring 4. There it is, 4 track correlators. Oh, you brought a small whip? Okay, maybe it's a tech to try and get extra mobility, but come on, get yourself a big whip. It's way more worth it. So yeah, big old 450 broadside, accurate out to 11 kilometers. Good stuff there. Pid also running one of these little gun cappers and one of these little gun cappers. Nice way to round out the rest of your battleship budget. Probably about 2.4K into that thing. Cherame coming in with, this is a pit boss. It is a specific Axford tech. Bunch of Mark 65s RPF spamming on this thing. Basically no defenses though. Has a chaff launcher and that's it. All right, let's take a look at the cap game briefly. So E-cap is going to be touched first as Duke of Stars with that Sun Drive is going to get there. That said, Cherami going to be trying to run down here with one of their little gun shuttle devices, or gun corvette, whatever, same difference. The Gunner number 3 is going to run into 3 of these. That is not going to be a fight that it wins. All right, rest of Cherami's fleet, they got a beam destroyer headed over here, trying to overwatch that D point. Also got another one of their little Gunner. I don't want to say Goonvet. Is Goonvet too dirty? I don't know if that's going to make the cut. Either way, they've got one of their little Mark 61 Daka corvettes going up here. And lastly, they had one that moved onto the B point and kept it before stepping off. They got a final cheap gun vet over here that has Pinard as a tech, and I believe another one sitting next to it. So Cherami taking a little bit while to roll. Yeah, they're not quite rolling out as fast as they could. Want to get your stuff moving up and forwards to get that scouting done. E-point contestation does continue going off here as it's going to be doing a little bit of Daka, although that said, there's still like just so much more T20 down here. Ooh, this actually is an Ewar. Missed on that one. Bellbird and a Warbler along with a Dazzler. Nice little omnidirectional soft kill suite there. Actually, it's not omnidirectional, but it's good enough to get you omni soft kill. Very sweet stuff. All right. Both teams kind of exchanging handshakes now as they reach the neutral points there. Let's see, where were we? Cherubie had, it was a 5 cappers, destroyer, and then the Riz boss is the name of this one. All right, Jeremy, nice name. Himar is coming in with, yep, here we go. Beams on the front, missiles on the back with a landing pad for good measure, getting those skiffs acting as extra little bit of point defense or possibly some offensives. We will see double gun makes it very resistant to missiles. Himar's internal check, got yourself Whiplash, Raider, Dragonfly, nice of the Neapolitan setup there. Hangar reality cell launch, a bunch of these things just set up to basically cook anyone who gets close. Let's see, that's FPA, 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 and FPA. So yeah, this thing is going to cook anyone who comes close to it. Has some hybrid missiles here to extend its reach a little bit before it enters 5K. Nice stuff. Double battleship, going to give the OSP something to think about. Lastly, Zavix rounding out the team with 2 of these 450 Axfords up here. Had to think for a second as I was looking at the mounts. One of them has comms jammer backpack, other one has size 2 backpack. If I had to bet, yep, contracted decoys. I've run this build. It's good stuff. Big old bulk mag to provide ammunition. Spyglass on the one, going to be parallax on the other one. Yep, there you go. Fire suppression system in case of rail. All right, those are the builds. That's what's on the table. Let's see how the cards fall. OSP initially secures themselves a 3 cap using their investment of shuttles on the top and bottom of the map to handily win those fights. That said, the Riz boss is going to say something about that. RPF is nasty, already destroying one shuttle here, so that's going to be a nasty, nasty thing once this comes around the corner and then gets into Dukastar's other ships. Duke pulling back there wisely. Couple of these hybrids coming out here from the backpack of HIMARS trying to fish around, see if they can find anything. Unfortunately, it looks like all they will be finding is Rock. Rock, the beloved and best PD in the game. There you go. Nice use of the Alliance naval budget. All right, ACAP is not being overwatched sufficiently, it looks like, as Dukastar is just kind of casually walking onto this, gonna maybe secure themselves a 4 cap here if ANS is asleep at the wheel. Looks like they are. Unfortunately, on the deployment rollout, they did not cover all of these points with sufficient amount of missiles, beams, or otherwise screening assets. Yeah, maybe drifting off it here, Duke, but Duke just barely stopping at the edge there. All right, just trying to toe the line, maximize the range here, trying to prevent a beam or other asset going after it. Looks like HIMARS does have some weapons out here. Going to be firing a size 1. Oh, this tech. I've seen this before. Act Hex P, potentially you get a boop on this thing if it does not have chaff. Unfortunately, it does have chaff, so those are going to be wasted. You can potentially, if you get lucky, snipe that CIC. It's very funny when that does in fact work. Unfortunately, not to be the case right now, so we're going to see more of them. Yep, there you go. That's what you get for using Act Hex P. Just going to be whiffing off, as this thing did bring in fact a little bit of chaff. Highball Fleet might be saying something about that as it goes chasing after Lucky Flight here into the midfield, trying to shield this device. All right, so that's a 4 cap of the OSP initially on the run. Should have run CMD. Yeah, you could have run CMD. That would have provided, I believe, a lock from the fire control radar. I actually don't remember the range of the fire control radar on the skiff. I don't know how far that would be. That might be a tech. I've seen these run before on Corvettes, and they do kind of poorly. 8 kilometers? No. See, it's got a 8-kilometer radar range when it has the upgrade from the OSP, but I don't remember what the on the ANS side, the skiff, its locking distance is for its gun, so you can get an actual lock for the CMD. Might be wrong, but it seems that the old patch's broadside BBs without a bunch of SCMs would not survive collision with dozen bombers. Yes, but at the same time, a dozen bombers have to get within range of your battleship and not be intercepted by, everything else on the ANS side. Remember, this is a team game, so it's not just one battleship versus the world. You can see how those things kind of develop as more and more people are figuring out the patch and its sort of new meta. Anyways, Gooner number 2 from Cherami trying to go into the A point, probably going to run into an intercepting flight. Highball Flight over here is equipped with these rocket pods, which are very nasty, especially against light assets like the singular Corvette trying to make its way here. Does not even have the Defender in arc against these right now, so would be seen off there. Little bit of RPF is going to convince them otherwise. Okay, E point now, Mini Boss is being invested, or rather Riz Boss. Have to remember the different names for this, because apparently, I don't know if somebody just got the memo of name every Axford with super RPF and cringe damage control and stuff, name that something boss, but I missed that letter, so here we are with the Riz boss holding this point down. There is a flight of bombers headed down here, Spearfish rocket pods along with KB-22s. Funnily enough, rocket pods actually kind of act as a pen aid for the bombs because they're a size 3 threat versus a size 2, so you can sometimes try and get those through. Anyways, this thing has no point defense, so this thing might just get completely smoked. ACAP is being attempted and looks like it's going off as 450 trying against it. No 100 mil in sight to see this thing off. Okay, there we go. Duke finally getting guns on target. All right, let's check these bombers at the bottom of the map. Nightshade Flight comes around the corner, going to be dumping their rockets. There we go. Is going to find out that, yes, this thing does not have point defense. And turns out defenders are kind of fucking important as Blackback goes oop and realizes what this thing was they just struck. So they're going to be going around again for another strike, and those are the bombs out. Yep, goodbye, Axford. This is why you run point defense, kids. This is a good tech, but not against that. This is why you need intercept flights or point defense guns, flak defenders, something like that. So that is 1,300 points of ANS just gone. Cherami, unfortunately, losing that one. Yep. So 4 bombers pretty good when they're uncontested. I think just any bomber's good when uncontested. Also, the destroyer over here is facing the entire wrong direction and getting lit up by the entire OSP frontline that has allocated itself to the top of the map. Plasma is deciding it doesn't need to participate because turns out that 8 C-30s is a lot of DACA. This thing is thoroughly perforated as the sides just get completely gobbled up by this thing. Yep. Fortunately, have to be trying to hide your beam destroyers and stuff there. I believe Cherami is primarily a missile support container player, So I can understand them having a bit of a rough go in the capped role. Still nice to see people expanding out from their kind of preferred playstyle and deciding to learn some new things, experiment with a couple of attacks, figure out what works and what does not work. Especially good to find out what does not work against the experienced players, because you have to figure out what you can get away with. And if they are on the ball like they have been, where they're denying both of these caps and then going to be collecting on various assets, you will very quickly realize what you are doing wrong. So technically, the Something Wild is still in the game. That said, a reactor is going off here, as well as all of the systems just kind of getting slaughtered. This thing's alive on an aux steering and a dream along with that. What is this even keep? Yeah, okay, the reinforced locker, they're kind of keeping it up. 450 going to be the end of that, as Flynn's colon 3 over here going to be shooing off this thing and finally deciding that it needs to give up the ghost. There we go, 450 through the snoot, going to kill off that restore. That will be that. No reactor for you. Reactor bloom in about a minute or so there. All right, let's take a look at how the cards currently lay. 3 cap for the ANS. They are behind about 100 points or so. They are about to be behind on caps as well, as Duke of Stars is wisely moving this thing over into the A cap. This is a deliberate tech, the direction this thing has been oriented. The idea is that if it is shot at by any large caliber bullets, they will overpen and just go zooming out the other side. Additionally, you can split damage rays between the basic CIC and the mag here, as well as the chaff box on top. Technically might be enough in order to get it a cap here. We'll just see this thing drift onto the point. It's actually overextending itself, needs to be a little bit further back, possibly a thruster error there, quickly arresting itself to move back. Anyways, ANS's frontline has not engaged in the game at all, really. HIMARS had tried to fire off a missile and hit a rock. We saw that over here, what was it? This was PIDS. The unsolicited device, the 450 projection power, is not being brought to bear, as basically all of the ANS is grouping up here, trying to commit to something. There goes that reactor bloom at the top of the map. Their natural is relatively unprotected from, like, anything, and down on the bottom of the map we see Duke of Stars has committed one of their bulkers, making sure they will see off anything that decides to go down here with those secondary T20 batteries. Nice multi-role usage of the 450 and T20 combination, kind of reminiscent of the Greedfords that were run on the previous patch for the ANS side, able to get some of those anti-light secondary batteries as well as the big anti-capital 450. That said, it does run a premium as you're paying for all of those guns and such on one hull, but still, if you get a comfortable 1 or 2 of these things, it can do very well, especially included in a fleet like this that is now moving its forces onto the east side. So that'll be a nice, handy acquisition for the OSP. ANS needs to make a play, and they need to do it soon. HIMARS is pretty much out of range of anything right now, as he's trying to move himself up onto this rock and see if there's something beamable. That said, OSP wisely just trying to keep themselves grounded right now, or otherwise play the kind of like loosey-goosey poke game with a couple of these shots. I think we saw it was... no, that's Duke of Stars. Where was Flynn's other... There it is. Yeah, so Flynn over here taking a couple of shots, but still Acello nose on with that Raider drive, can dodge dance around a little bit. Kind of just, trying to tax whatever damage you get against a beam battleship like this. Beam battleship having a bit of a rough time, as again, it's a awkward position trying to get yourself up committed into these close quarters brackets where you can start pressuring, but not get yourself killed by bombers or have your cap plate bled out in the meantime. I've seen this a lot. The ANS tends to have a bit of an issue where they try and enter standoff distance on Valley, occupying this kind of area because it feels safe to them, but not then applying pressure and unfortunately allowing OSP to just kind of take the entire map for themselves. So seeing a couple of these missiles going off here, that is a Heckby hunting after one of Flynn's devices up top there, which has really gone out into orbit, the colon 3. All right. Let's see if this finds a purchase or not. Shall we? It's going to stage and immediately start dropping decoys, and immediately is going to get zapped by Auroras, because as it turns out, when you fire on an intact PD net that is meant to counter hybrids with a hybrid, it does not really work. So that said, they're going to try it again. I'm not sure what they are intending to do with this. Maybe just trying to poke and see just exactly how tough their defenses are, or see if they can't bleed out a bit of the Aurora hit points just by trying to see if they can bait out a battle short. So though, 4 Auroras on this thing, equidistantly spaced apart, is going to do pretty well. Yeah, not really much to say right now. Trying to keep the game active as OSP has secured their 4 cap. ANS just deathballing at the moment. They are slowly gliding their way over. They do find that Flynn has a Acello up here, but just, yeah, Flynn commenting saying Safari maxing as they're just kind of hanging out here on the orbital edge of the map. Not really much for them to do. ANS needs to make a play, and they need to do it soon, because otherwise they're going to fall very far behind on points. 4 cap is no joke. We see already they have fallen about 150 points behind now. So yeah, they're recognizing the situation now as ANS has realized we kind of fucked up. We did not counter this correctly. We did not expect this kind of deployments in the arrangement that was done. So Bit of a comp issue potentially from the ANS side there, bringing a battleship and a 450 broadside battleship into a fight here that they just do not have the targets to shoot at. Seeing that basically Flynn has just been playing poke game all match, and then we're seeing the close quarters assets here from Scrubbers just kind of kept in reserve. HIMARS is desperately trying to find themselves a beam fight that they can take, as HIMARS, I believe, is a fairly experienced beam player. That said, though, OSP, if they're smart, is just not going to give it to them. Still, though, this is actually kind of dangerous. These are all within, like, that 3-kilometer range. So, yeah, you might get a bunch of plasma off here, as we're seeing, I believe Scrub is going to be rotating onto that target. Do they know this thing is a beam battleship? I don't think that they do. I think they might have a suspicion, but beam battleship coming around the corner right now, as we're seeing these already moving over to counter it. Yes, the plasma is on target here, and it looks like they're going to start cycling and trying to cook, but beams are pretty fierce. Like, if you wander into this range, you're going to start getting cooked. It's on them to apply enough plasma now to get those the C30s firing. It's so weird to say C30 on a thing like that. Anyways, C30s do start biting in here. Let's see, is there enough plasma quite yet? No, looks like most of it is just deflecting off fairly harmlessly. There goes the beam in turn saying, hi, hello, how you doing? As now violence ensues. Both sides going to be unleashing their entire volleys into each other. All right, how much plasma has been dealt? Not nearly enough. These are not being battle shorted. Probably might be worth it, as you are going to get a huge salvo. Here comes a flight of 13 bombers. OSP, completely uncontested in the skies, has been allowed to build up a critical mass. That said, point defense is still pretty good, as it turns out. A couple of those getting smacked on approach. Just how many of them live? Wow, already half the flight not making its way through. A couple of bombs being deployed here potentially can get this thing. We're seeing some crits going off now, as the top has been plasmed sufficiently to let shots in. Still, though, a lot of those going to get shot down. So yeah, HIMARS peeks, sticks their face into the porcupine quills, but is going to be able to get out here. Magazine is trying to detonate off, but there is enough time that they can fix this. They now know what the enemy has, and here comes the rest of the forces. Bombers were expended, and now the axe swords and battleship going to start saying something. Here we go. ANS finally making their play, opening up with the 450. Scrub is going to have a rough go, as these things, while not completely like cheap on DC, are not kitted for filling out a frontline role against 9,000 points of ANS beef. So glad to see how that ends up developing. A point right now, as both sides have decided that foreheading the front line on top of the map is the play. Kind of just seeing it now as Duke of Stars has wisely moved up their 450 T20 liner. Kind of interesting seeing one of these in a cap fleet. ANS doesn't really have the equivalent with the pit boss, as it does not have point defense, but we see over here Duke of Stars with this asset does have a little bit of PD on this thing, so that's kind of cool to see. Anyways, like it a little capper text. I enjoy playing cap fleet, so I like commenting on them. Anyways, let's see what else is happening. So PID over here coming around the corner, deciding to get in on the action. Broadside has been presented. This might be a mistake. Is there rockets on any of these? No, these are just air superiority wing to try and see off enemy fighters, and there was none brought. Battery wing over here is trying to dump some of their load from below. Looks like they are expended on some of these. Other ones appear to still have their payload. So we will see if they can get some rockets off against HIMARS. Here we go. A couple of torpedoes launched there and just going to immediately go win. Duke very confused here, I think. Yeah, Duke saying the radar is broken. What is Duke commenting on? Jeremy actually completely out of the game right now. That is unfortunate. Yeah, Jeremy just... because the ANS frontline didn't really engage. OSP had freedom to basically just really collect on all of Jeremy's assets. This is the unfortunate thing when ANS plays a little too passively and does not get into the fight quite yet. The ANS cap fleet is very susceptible to OSP's taxing agents, like we see over here, Duke of Stars, with those T20s on the secondary role. And then we see them also now committing into frontline mode, as well as just, having like mass shuttles around the place to try and kill off everything, and then use things like Scrubbus here with the C30s. And then finally, Black Bat be able to run some of the anti-light roll with one of these had rocket pods. Who was it? Not you. Not you. Yeah, these guys, bombers and such, can do anti-light. All right, anyways, ANS Death Ball commences. They are going to be beating the brakes off of these bulkers. That's a fun sentence to say. So yeah, Scrubbus having a rough go at life, did wander into the entire enemy front line. They were aware that the enemy was here, but after HIMARS took the initial kind of volley on the chin and then decided, hey guys, there's a free opportunity to collect on some bulkers, the rest of the ANS capitals come around and start throwing hands. That said, though, they are very behind on the cap presence. They have like one light asset now to try and cap out part of the map. As we say that, we're seeing over here Duke of Stars winning the cap advantage, taking that B point. This is a win condition for the OSP to try and tax the ANS of all their light stuff, keep all of the ANS's critical firepower in one controllable area, and then just try and make their presence known as they slowly kind of bleed out the rest of the game. ANS having to split up to then go for caps, they're able to then take an advantageous fight against various assets as they are split off. ANS strength, however, is also this death ball, because as it turns out, when you put 9,000 points of gun towards somebody, they die really, really fast. Flynn doing a good job here, keeping distance, trying to dodge dance against all this 450. Single radar drive does make an Acello nimble, but not super duper nimble. So we're going to see a couple of these, maybe actually. Ooh, okay, there you go. A couple of them do bite. So still, Flynn playing the range game well, trying to play evasively there. Sea-Capper going off here, as we saw that the PID over here, just the little, my boy here, the gun brick that could, is going to be now losing its cap that it had as Duke just commits a small cheap shuttle. So have to be trying to preserve your assets. This is something to consider for the upcoming tournament that we're probably going to see. Win conditions for ANS can be these capitals. If they are allowed to do their work, they will go to town. As we saw, they already basically had folded Scrubbus here, who is, let's see, currently, what are you out of? Missing critical resource power, trying to restore a lot of this stuff. Bulkers can get back on their feet pretty well with mass restorers and stuff, but yeah. They already lost this game. A bit of that, yes, as we see that the OSP realized their win condition, which is to just deprive the ANS of any of their light assets and then try and get super far ahead on caps like we see here. Although the ANS team does start getting their win condition going, which is to deplete the enemy's capital presence and then use their stuff, they are also kind of like, they're kind of out of it here, as we see that a lot of their stuff has just been bled out and they don't have the ability to get on the caps soon enough. 5 cap has been secured for the OSP. I think that I will still upload this game, even though it was a bit of a loss just from the kind of deployment side. We saw something like the mini boss down here, the Riz boss, getting itself picked off for free because it did not have support. And also, this is kind of what you get running greedy builds like this that don't bring any point defense. Please, people, you have these top slots. I know that it takes budget to commit to point defense, but come on, a defender will help you. Please don't die to a single lone container. Ag! Alliance losing cap fleet really hurts them. Yes. Alliance relies on their capitals as one of their strengths. That way they can open avenues for their cap fleet to sneak into. If the Alliance is not engaging with their front line, then what happens is the OSP says, oh, okay, we have an opportunity here to just punch out a lot of the lighter cap assets, which are more valuable per capita on the ANS side. Compare like the price of one of these little Corvettes here. Like, although this is relatively cheap just with the basic guns and stuff, even so, getting all of this stuff together, this is going to run you like 250 to 300 points or so. So you're going to be paying a little bit of your budget for that compared to some of the very cheap cappers like these T20 things here. I believe that these all come in for like about 150, 160, so you can get a lot more of them and also afford to lose a lot more of them. ANS needs to play more defensively with their caps and focus on preservation and not be throwing stuff away like the OSP does. I talked about this in another stream casty thingy I did where I mentioned that, yes, if you can deny the enemy their caps and stuff, that is strong. But if you cannot hold those caps, then it doesn't really add up to anything, because if you, like, say, pay for the A point like they did with sending a shuttle down and then immediately getting that thing blown out, it's like, okay, well, we got that, but we paid 300 for a cap that we didn't take for, like, longer than 2 minutes. So gotta watch out for that. Anyways, Heimar's doing the funny, trying to get a beam onto target. Unfortunately, these Barracudas are a little bit evasive here. Not really doing much with them since there's no fighters to really fight, so they're just kind of hugging up to a rock there. Broadsword fight is going to be getting some bombs out on PID here, and the unsolicited device is getting its entire front side taken off. That's a lot of damage, Chief, I'm not going to lie. Turns out bombs against targets that do not have sufficient point defense or screening assets are going to be very, very good, as we saw earlier in this game. So that's the second capital to just basically get smacked up like that. One on the top of the map, one on the bottom. So pretty much just waiting for the OSP team to collect here. And again, this is not a case of OSP or ANS or either faction being particularly overpowered in one of those niches. This is a case of a bit of execution error, not correctly communicating and realizing what assets you need to have where, and then correctly bringing the tools to counter the enemy's stuff. As we saw, the ANS team largely did not bring things to counter any potential fighter threats, and the OSP instead decided, oh, if you're going to do that, we'll just bring along a more line. So potentially reading their opponents and preferred playstyles and stuff. Also, a little bit of range bracketing error as they had a hard time getting that beam battleship up here towards the D point side and then actually fighting stuff. So despite this being a 3,000 point asset, can you justify this thing getting 3,000 points of value? I say no, and that's why I will say it's much better to take something like PID did here with a couple more of these lighter assets, since ANS really does rely on these things to get onto a point once an opportunity has been made with its capitals, like these Axfords, battleships, and I suppose to an extent the CLs, although CLs are a little bit more cavalry, so they kind of try and swoop in as well. SDM spam, if you think you have enough SDMs, bring more. Yep, SDMs are a way of seeing off some of the enemy assets. Breadsticks as well, very good at bonking enemy bombers. That said, though, I think that maybe on like an older build, a comp like this could work where there was not the threat of craft. But as we saw here, carrier player, when uncontested in the skies and allowed to do their thing, can bring a lot of damage to some of these builds. So ANS used to be able to just park capitals on point and get an endgame if they weren't too far behind. Agreed, that is one of the ways ANS can get a win condition where they just deplete the enemy front line of all of its health bar. For example, we see Scrubbers up here. When engaged on by the ANS front line, had a really, really rough time. Still technically alive, but bleeding pretty bad here as this thing is now structure broken. So ANS can definitely... get off my cursor. Yeah. ANS can definitely throw hands when it comes down to it. The question is, what happens if they are not engaged in the correct times, and what happens then if they lose all their capper assets before they establish a frontline fight presence? So, yeah. You can defend yourself with breadsticks and other methods, but lone capitals are more vulnerable. Yes, exactly. We saw down here, the Riz boss down here. Again, not paying for any defense against Strikecraft besides a little bit of RPF. We saw what happens when bombers unmask in that close range bracket and they just dive with a bunch of bombs, torpedoes, rockets, etc. So, that is what happens if you don't pay your point defense tax or do not bring from the lobby the correct comp. So, have to make sure you are contesting the OSP in the skies at some point or other, because if they are just given free reign to fill out as many flights of bombers as they want, I don't know why that one is showing up there. Apparently it's dead, but not showing up. That is actually kind of cursed. Where is... I don't actually know why that's there. It says that there's more of these things. I think that the UI on the fighters might be a little bit buggy, even after the hotfix, which actually didn't touch fighter thing at all, so that's something. Zoom out. Chief, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm looking at it right here, and it claims that there is a fighter or bomber here. I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing a red health bar, so I don't know what's with that, but clearly this thing is a little bit quirky sometimes. Maybe it landed already? Who knows? Odd happenings anyways on Heaven... what is this map called? Valley. I tried to call it Heaven's River. That's a different map. Yeah. Just play another game and kill 2 Solemns with the fleet you're running while also having to control a cap fleet someone else left. That's unfortunate, Tasty. I hope that you don't keep getting 6Ks, although at the same time, sounds like you're pulling numbers with them, so good on you, bud. Anyways, back to this game proper. OSP just going to collect on the win. Honestly, ANS kind of throwing it from the get-go there. Posturing themselves in this position is very common for Valley plays, as it feels just kind of like a natural thing. This is a great learning opportunity, as this is not a like actual game played out on the tournament. Instead, this is one of the practice matches as these two teams kind of scrim off beforehand, saying, hey, maybe we should learn this map. What are the things we do? What are the things we don't do? How are we going to go about this in the future? And then decide what are the weaknesses we need to correct and then make up for with other assets. So, as we're seeing here, Duke is running one of their bulkers here. Actually, their only bulker. I'm getting Duke and Scrubbus mixed up. But yeah, once again, once the ANS capitals actually commit and start opening up on stuff like this, they need to find cover, because bulkers, they can repair a lot and they have a lot of damage control and other goodness, but they do not want to be standing here taking all of this. What did he mean by this? We don't know. Either way, just going to wait for the OSP to collect on that. But yeah, learning opportunities here. I feel like this has been a constant issue of ANS in the, I don't know, like weeks since the patch. They've still been trying to figure out how to set up for their frontline stuff. OSP has tools now to punish a lot of the light cappers with either containers or with Strikecraft. So there's a new like win condition for OSP, which is deprive the enemy of all their cappers using your various backline assets like that. It was done before, but it was a little bit weaker since container missiles weren't as consistent and fighters just, didn't exist. So now we're seeing OSP correctly pursuing their win condition, punch out one of the enemy players, Jeremy completely tax on all of their stuff. I hope that they learn from this and realize that, hey, this is a threat. We need to make sure we are avoiding this. We need to project ourselves across more of the battle space, because collecting 9k of your assets together to just try and push 1 point, that does not win you the map, and it also creates opportunities because so much of your like zoning and screening tools are concentrated in one zone. It means that the rest of your fleet comp, which is going to be Jeremy's cappers here, these are going to get bled out. Same can be said for PID's little corvettes along with this. So yeah, I don't know what I'll call this one, but probably just a Valley learning experience. I want to upload this one to YouTube because this is a good game. Well, okay. This was a stomp, but it's a stomp we can explain and justify, saying, hey, watch out for these things. You need to keep more aware of this. If they had swapped out, say, HIMARS from the Beam Battleship, instead running along with something like some Voxels, a screening asset, saying, hey, you can't just run fighters around here. I've got RPF. Or potentially bringing along their own levy to contest the skies, making so Black Bat does not have free reign of the approach angles, cannot just run a bunch of bombers unprotected onto various assets. Definitely could see a change up there. Could see some more SDM bricks or Sarissas brought along. That would be very good at trimming out a couple of the fighters and bombers and making them think twice. Air control is something you have to consider now, and you can't just avoid, you can't just avoid the enemy as you could in previous games. Where it's like, oh, they've got like Yub Nub. I'll just kind of, hang out back here and bring my chaff along. So, yeah. Liner player has been informed of the small drives in voice chat. Ah, excellent. So, yeah. Keep an eye on that one. I think it was either HIMARS or who was it? think it was unsolicited device PID. Yeah, I think one of those had a small whip as well, so gotta watch out for those. But yeah. I think it was Scrubbus. Yeah, Scrubbus is really trying to fit like all of this into a 3K. So, well, don't get me wrong, liners are good, and I do think that the plasma and 100 mil can work. Hitting that critical mass of plasma, we did not see fast enough there before the beam battleship really started cooking. So maybe like, I don't know, 2 plasma liners with T20s, because T20s are already pretty good. That's a good way to can opener somebody and get those T20s barking into the like internals. So could see a changeout for that. Still interesting seeing this kind of fleet comp come together. But yeah, I think that was a great learning opportunity. We're going to go back to the main menu and I will put a marker highlight on this. Add marker, let's see, end of Valley scrim. There we are. I'll just add that so I remember to go back in the VOD and then upload that to YouTube